değerli üyelerimiz, bugün tarihi bir buluşmanın Türkiye tarafında bulunmaktan ayrı bir gurur ve mutluluk duymaktayım. Sayın Berger'i daha önce delegasyon üyesi büyükelçilerle birlikte Denizli Ticaret Odamızda ağırlayıp dünyamızla buluşturmuştuk. Sayın Berger ve ekibiyle o günden bu yana Denizlimiz ile Avrupa Birliği ülkeleri arasındaki ticari ilişkiler ve işbirliğini artırmak adına sürekli temas halinde bulunduk. Değerli konuklar, 80'li yılların ikinci yarısından sonra artan ve hızlanan Türkiye ile Avrupa Birliği ilişkileri bugün 144 milyar 639 milyon dolarlık ticaret hacmine ulaşmış bulunmaktadır. Denizlimizin Avrupa Birliği ülkeleri ile ticaret hacmi ise 2019 verilerine göre 1 milyar 713 milyon dolar olarak gerçekleşmiştir. Denizlimiz Avrupa Birliği ülkelerine geçen yıl 1 milyar 535 milyon dolarlık ihracat yapmış bulunmaktadır. Bu yıl Ocak-Mayıs arasındaki toplam ihracatımızın %63'ü Avrupa Birliği ülkelerine yapılmıştır. Geçen yıl ithalatımız ise 178 milyon 531 dolar olarak gerçekleşti. Denizli olarak başlıca tekstil ve konfeksiyon, elektrik ve elektronik, demir ve demir dışı metaller ile madencilik ürünleri ihraç etmekteyiz. Bornoz, sabahlık, örme, dokuma, havlu, çarşaf ile nevresim gibi tekstil ve konfeksiyon ürünleri tüm dünyaya ihracatımızın yarısını oluşturmaktadır. Denizlimiz ülkemizin 9. ihracat şehridir. 2019'daki ihracatımızın %63'ünü Avrupa Birliği ülkelerine gönderdik. Avrupa Birliği'nin Türkiye ihracatındaki oranı ise %42,4 olarak gerçekleşti. Denizli olarak Avrupa Birliği ile ihracatımız ülke ortalamamızın oldukça üzerindedir. Ayrıca şehrimizde 178 tane yabancı ortaklı firma vardır. Bunlardan 37 tanesi karşılığı gelen, 66'sı Avrupa Birliği ülkelerinden ortakların bulunduğu işletmelerimizdir. Türkiye'nin dış ticaretinde Avrupa Birliği'nin ağırlıklı konumu ile ülkemize gelen yabancı yatırımların 2/3'ünden fazlasının Avrupa Birliği menşeli olması da oldukça önemlidir ve değerlidir. Avrupa Birliği en büyük ticari ortağımızdır. Türkiye olarak ithalat ve ihracatımızın yaklaşık yarısını Avrupa Birliği ülkeleriyle gerçekleştiriyoruz. Dolayısıyla Avrupa Birliği'nde yaşanan olumlu ve olumsuz her konu bizi de doğrudan ilgilendirmektedir. Bu ayın ikisinde komisyonunuzun genişlemeden sorumlu üyesi Avrupa Birliği'nin aday ülkeler için yürüttüğü kısa adı İPO olan katılım öncesi yardım aracının 2021 ve 2027 yılları arasında kapsayan 3. dönemine Türkiye'nin de dahil edildiği haberini almamız bizleri son derece mutlu etmiştir. Bizler Avrupa Birliği ile ilişkilerimizi önemsiyoruz. Sizi ve delegasyonunuzu Denizli'mizde ağırladığımız tarihten itibaren bu süreç yeni bir boyut kazandı. Bunun daha da güçlendirilmesi adına bu ilişkinin kesintisiz sürdürülmesinin büyük önem taşıdığına inancımız tamdır. Nisan ve Mayıs aylarında tüm dünyada olduğu gibi ülkemizde de ve şehrimizde de ihracatta azalma yaşandı. Önümüzdeki süreçte ticaretimizdeki kayıpların hızla telafi edilmesini, salgının etkilerinin azaltılmasını umuyoruz. Avrupa Birliği ülkelerinin önümüzdeki günlerde toparlanmasını bekliyoruz. Haziran ayı inşallah tüm dünya için, Avrupa Birliği ve ülkemiz için, Denizli'miz için geçiş dönemi olacaktır. Sayın Başkanım, benim şimdi söyleyeceklerim bu kadar. Ancak biraz sonra bazı sorularım olacak ve kapanışta da farklı konulara değineceğim. Sizi aramızda görmek bizim için onurdur, şereftir. Katılımınız için şimdiden siz ve delegasyona, tüm ekibinize teşekkür ediyorum. Sözlerime son veriyorum. Size konuşmayı devrettikten sonra tekrar karşılıklı istişarelerimizi devam ettireceğiz. Saygılarımla.
Dear Mr. President, thank you very much for this very kind invitation to come and visit you this way and meet you and meet the members of the chamber and everyone who is watching us. Before starting, let me express my sympathy and condolences for the loss that you have suffered recently, and I hope and I wish your mother's soul to rest in God. I think you mentioned many important aspects of our relationship, and let me start with the relationship between your chamber and the delegation of the European Union in general. I think we have, as you said, we had it was a great not only joy, but it was also a great enlightenment visiting Denizli together with the member states, but also on my own. See the companies, see the very active engagement of your chamber, and also focus on some of the important industries in your area, like textile industry, but also health, tourism, and other industries that you want to develop. It was very, I think, important for our colleagues, the ambassadors of the member states, to see what is happening, what is going on the ground in an important city like district like Denizli. And as you know, also with the European delegation in Ankara, we have a long-standing relationship with you, with the chamber, and with the business community. We have a number of important projects running, very often focusing on skill enhancement for the business community. And now we will also have very soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and maybe by June or the latest in July, we will have another project on the textile industry, transformation of the textile industry. So these are all, I think, very important engagement, and not only we see that we achieve something together, but we also get very important feedback from you and from our partners on the economic situation. And you make, just in your opening speech, you made a number of important remarks, and you referred to important data. Let me expand a little bit on that, because I think it's important, because as a businessman, you need to understand the data that we are working and the environment we are working, and I'm sure it's also of interest maybe to people who listen to us right now. So the crisis that we're in, and people often speak about an economic crisis, but it was caused by a health crisis or by a virus that has been spreading with enormous speed and with great scope across the globe, has hit many, if not all, countries, and as it has gone around very, very fast around the globe. This magnitude, the impact which had to be responded to by countries, by nations, in order to protect the health systems, this magnitude of the impact has led to disruptions of private lives, personal lives, businesses, but also the supply chain. And again, here, this relationship between the EU and Turkey is very important, because Turkey is part and parcel of the supply chain for the European Union, with all the knock-on effects that this interruption of the supply chain has had. Knock-on effect on the employment situation, knock-on effect on the industrial output, on the flow of capital, on the commodity prices, on many other aspects of trade relations and businesses that we have to engage between the European Union and Turkey. Now, when you look at the European Union, the GDP is most likely to shrink by 7.4% in 2020. Unemployment has gone to 9%, the unemployment rate. And you may recall the outgoing president of the European Commission, Mr. Juncker, was very proud at his final speech at the European Parliament last September that we have reached the highest level of employment in the European Union with 230 million people in employment. Of course, with this crisis, this has now again changed. And as I said, we have an unemployment rate of about 9%. But budget deficit compared to GDP has gone up to 8.3%. And then something important that you already referred to, and that is affecting our trade relationship, that overall global trade is expected to go down between 10 to 16% in 2020. And we've already seen a severe impact on some of the industries. Construction industry is one, tourism industry is another one, but also very important industries in Turkey that are part and parcel of the European supply chain, like motor vehicles, producing cars, but also spare parts, machinery. One industry that you care a lot because it's an important one in your area. Textiles, all of this have suffered since the beginning of the crisis because of the slowdown or the interruption of the supply chain. But I think the lesson that we can draw from that, the lesson that we can learn from that is how important interconnectivity is. Interconnectivity is not only a challenge because sometimes the supply chain gets broken, but it's also a very important opportunity and occasion to strengthen our partnership, to strengthen the way we are working, the way we are responding together to a crisis situation of this global magnitude. It also means that the Union, but also our partners countries, our neighbors, the candidate countries like Turkey, we also need to work together at the international level, at the global level, and strengthen organizations that uphold global trade, like WTO and other organizations. I'll give you one example of this interconnectivity and this close cooperation and partnership that we have to really emphasize. When was it? On the 5th of May, so about 4 weeks ago, there was a conference hosted by the European Commission together with the G20 community. The conference was targeting fundraising for finding a vaccine. It was a pledging conference. People came together, countries, organizations, also philanthropic organizations came together to raise funds to invest in finding a vaccine to the crisis. Now, we wanted, I think the target was 7.8 or 8 billion euros. We have exceeded this target. It's now more than 9 billion. And Turkey took part in this conference with a very important message by President Erdogan and with financial contribution to the pledging conference. So it shows this very close connection and the partnership principle that governs our relationship because of Turkey's status as obviously as a candidate country that plays an important role in that. Now, coming back to the problems that we are facing. So as we have said, we had a number of difficult practical issues to resolve. And I must say, in our conversation with the ministers for trade, ministers for transport, minister for health, and also yesterday we had a long conversation with the minister for tourism, we are able to address and overcome some of these issues. And I'm mentioning this because I can see several stages in addressing this crisis that we have now. Stage number one was how to minimize the impact on the health system, how to protect our health system, because you may recall in February and March, there was the fear that the health systems would collapse because of the impact of patients in hospital in general, but also at the intensive care units. It didn't happen. I think we have seen good results both in the European Union, but even more so in Turkey, with a very resilient health system that has been able to absorb and to deal with the incoming patients. So this is, I think, an important lesson also for the future. What do we do next, and how do we prepare for a future crisis? The second thing that happened was we had to address immediate practical problems. Problem number one was to bring people back home. So about 600,000 Europeans were flown back home from various countries, from various parts of the world, including from Turkey. And again, the cooperation by Turkish Airlines, the Ministry of Transportation, and the airport authorities was extremely good, and we managed to evacuate or bring back home whoever wanted to go back. And reverse situation is true as well, because Turkey is part of the European Civil Protection Mechanism. So we were using this mechanism to bring back Turkish citizens from Latin America and some from other parts of the world. So this was again also a dual way approach using this mechanism that we set up to deal with civilian crises. Secondly, we had to make sure that this is important for you and for your members. We had to make sure that the flow of goods across borders would not be interrupted. First of all, across borders inside the European Union. Again, I'm sure you recall that in the early days of the crisis in February and March, many borders were closed for traffic, not only for people, but also for goods. But this had to be opened very quickly, and with our partners, including Turkey. So we came up with the concept of the green lanes to make sure that the flow of goods across borders will not be interrupted. And we managed to sort out some hiccups in the beginning, but very quickly, with the help of the responsible ministries in Turkey, we managed to overcome those hiccups. The next issue that we had to deal with was procurement of protective gear like masks, gloves, respirators, etc. And the European Commission very quickly launched a massive procurement program, but not only procurement, also now a stockpiling program, just in case something else is happening, another wave is coming, another virus is coming. So that again was a lesson from the early days of the crisis. You may recall that in the early days of the crisis, the European Union was attacked or criticized for not acting fast enough. Let me explain the structures in the Union. Health is a matter or responsibility of the individual member states. So they responded obviously first. They were the first responders, as we say, to this crisis situation, to make sure that the health systems would not collapse. Sometimes it was not even the state, it was the region or the city that had to do this. So depending on the structure of the country, different authorities had to react. But very quickly it was understood that if we want to address this crisis, we have to stand together, cooperate, and lift this to the European level. So very quickly, the European Commission, together with the member states, formed a new concept, which is called Team Europe, where all the institutions of the European Union work together to address the crisis, the health crisis itself, but also the impact of the measures that had to be taken to fight this crisis, namely the impact on the economies and on the social structures of the European Union. So we are now entering the next phase. And the next phase is exactly how do we deal with the economic impact? How do we address the impact on supply chains, on trade, on many of the things that we mentioned before, and we have seen negative figures. Now, the Union, first of all, changed legislation regarding the budgetary deficits of the member states and allowed member states to spend more money above the budgetary limits in fighting the crisis. So this was number one. Number two, the Union also changed the rules or eased the rules on state aid. So states can now intervene in order to protect companies. You may have again followed this in the news in the last few days. There was a lot of debate about various airlines that had to be supported because airlines suffered a lot during the crisis with the complete standstill of traffic and mobility of people. So airlines had to be supported. The Commission proposed to the European Parliament legislation to protect the landing slots or the landing rights of airlines, because you may know under the agreements, airlines need to use 80% of the landing slots per year in order not to lose them. So that had to be changed because they cannot use 80% at the moment. This was done again. And the next level was to put together a rather comprehensive and I would say massive economic package, which includes many components, but the components together, the monetary value is about 4 trillion euros, composed of different loans and grant components. The biggest part is the European Central Bank that is buying up private and public securities. Then you have the European Investment Bank supporting small and medium-sized enterprises. A, these are your partners in Europe, and B, they are the locomotive, the engine for employment in Europe, like in all other countries. So it's important to support small, medium-sized enterprises. And the Commission is putting funds and money into various sectors, ranging from fishery to agriculture, to tourism sector, to many sectors that have been hit hard now by the crisis. And a couple of weeks ago, the European Commission President, Mrs. von der Leyen, proposed to the European Parliament, to the member state, an additional package of 750 billion euros composed of loans and grants in order to help the most affected regions of Europe. This is one of the key principles. We don't want anyone to stay behind. So all the regions have to be helped, particularly those that have been affected most, and people, individuals, because job creation, job protection, making sure that companies can continue doing their work and employ people is at the forefront of what we can do. So the whole aim is towards a relatively speedy recovery and growth rate again. Now, I would mention here two principles and two actions that we are undertaking. The two principles I want to mention, one is preparedness, to make sure that we are prepared for any other crisis that may hit us, and resilience, to make sure that the structures and the systems in health, in crisis response, in response to weather conditions, to droughts, to forest fires, response to food scarcity, is there and is strong enough to withstand any of these crises that may be faced. So preparedness is important, resilience is important. And in order to stimulate growth, the European Commission came up with two big proposals. One is the so-called Green Deal. And the Green Deal means that we want to be more ecological in the way we operate, in the way we live. And this has to do with transportation, with energy usage, with the type of energy we're using, the insulation of houses that we live in, and also to make sure that industry, businesses, companies are taking up this challenge of making Europe climate neutral by the year 2050, but also on the way to reduce further the greenhouse gas emissions. And here we are on good track, and also to comply with the goals of the Paris climate conference of a couple of years ago. So this is the Green Deal, 1 trillion euros that will go into making sure this will be implemented. The other part is, again, I'm sure very interesting for you, is the transformation, the digital transformation of the economy and of businesses. So again, investment into technology, investment into gear, investment into processes to make sure that our technology, that our industry, that our businesses can catch up and be competitive on the global market, which has become more and more a digital sort of environment the last few months. And I think this conference, as we have it right now, is a good example for that. The last few months have shown how important it is to be able to rely on digital means of communication and digital means of engagement. So, in a nutshell, I would say these are the measures that we are taking very soon. We also have one part that deals with our partner countries, not only the candidate countries, but beyond that. We have put together a package to support countries that may face challenges with the health system. So there are many countries in Africa and in Asia where the European Union now will also help them to be capable of addressing and facing the situation, and for the health systems not to collapse. So it's a broad package, internal in the European Union, external to the European Union, also to make sure that the flow of trades and goods between us and our partners, important trade partners like Turkey, can continue. So my last sentence is simply to say, we are facing a lot of challenges. A lot of things have happened that need to be addressed. A lot of things that have happened that need to be addressed urgently, and with a very substantial support package. But in all of this, there are also very important opportunities for companies, for innovative businesses, for entrepreneurs, and as we all know, in Turkey, we can count on a very resourceful entrepreneurship, on a very resourceful business community, on a young and very highly educated labor force. So I think Turkey will be able to positioning itself very strongly in the future. Also, in light of the debate that I'm sure is also taking place in your chamber, to make sure that certain industries, strategically important industries, are not too far away from either Turkey or from Europe or from the customs union, because of the danger of an interrupted supply chain, the way we started this discussion in the beginning. So I think a place like Denizli, your chamber, your business community, certainly is offering a sort of a big attraction to companies that want to relocate from other places around the world closer to Europe, closer to Turkey, and into the customs union. So I think this is yet another opportunity in addition to the ones I've mentioned before. So thank you very much for this occasion to talk to you and your members. And I will be very happy to hear your comments about the situation as well, or your members' comments, or if you have questions, very happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Evet, öncelikle Büyükelçi Sayın Christian Berger'e vermiş olduğu çok önemli ve değerli bilgilerden dolayı şahsım ve üyelerim adına çok teşekkür ediyorum. Aynı zamanda üyelerimizden gelen tabii ki sorularımız çok. Çünkü Denizli'miz yapmış olduğu ihracatın %63'ünü Avrupa Birliği ülkelerine yapıyor. Onun için arzumuz ve gönlümüz birlikte hareket edip her iki ülke ve şehirler arasındaki diyaloğun ve ticaretin arttırma arzusu içerisindeyiz. Sayın Büyükelçime tabii ki sorularımız var. Özellikle üyelerimizden gelen sorularımız var. Bunları ben aktarmaya çalışayım. Birinci sorumuz şudur. Avrupa Birliği COVID-19 salgını süresince süresini nasıl yorumluyor? Avrupa Birliği ile Türkiye arasındaki ticari ve ekonomi ilişkiler salgın sonrasında nasıl şekillenecek? Gümrük Birliği'nin geleceği ve mali işbirliği anlaşmaları ile vize konularında ne tür değişiklikler olabilir? Sayın Büyükelçim bunlarla ilgili cevap verebilirse mutlu oluruz. Ondan sonra ikinci soruma geçeceğim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very broad-ranging questions, and I'll try to answer them in a succinct manner. The COVID process and how we interpret it and what we have seen, I think, first of all, we have been all hit very hard by the magnitude of this crisis and the speed of this crisis, as I said at the beginning of my intervention. So we need to draw lessons from that, and we need to make sure that we are better prepared for the future, because I'm sure you follow this also in the news. There are many experts who think there might be an after wave or another wave or a different type of disease that may hit us very soon. So now I think we have drawn very important lessons, and we have had very important experience with all this, and we need to be better prepared. So one example, which I mentioned earlier on, is the health system. So we need to continue investing in our health system to make them more resilient. But another example where Turkey and the European Union, I think, have a good track record is our social system, all the social systems that we have in various countries. Because when you look in other places, people lost their jobs, lost their income, had no health insurance, had no unemployment insurance. But both in the EU countries and in Turkey, there has been a sufficient enough safety net, social safety net, in order to make sure that people do not fall between the cracks. Another aspect of process is, as we all have experienced from the beginning, we need to stand together, we need to cooperate, and we need to prepare ourselves better for any eventuality in the future. So that is an aspect also about EU-Turkey relationship, because we have seen that Turkey is a very important producer of protective gear, of masks, of gloves and other things. And I mentioned that in the beginning we had some hiccups with the export licenses, because obviously Turkey had to satisfy its own national and domestic needs, and that led to some problems between companies, because European companies had who had put orders and paid for orders didn't get the equipment delivered. But we've overcome this. I think it was very important that with the help of the ministries and everybody else, we could overcome this very quickly, because this is important for the long-term relationship, this reliability and credibility of the business links and the business engagement. I think we are on the safe side now. And this was very important. The support that we got from the officials on the Turkish side. Now, in the future, regarding economic and commercial relations, I think we need to go back to where we were before the crisis in terms of volume. And I don't see any problems with that. And as I mentioned, there are now even more opportunities that some industries will be relocated to Turkey. Will be closer to, will be inside the European Turkish customs union and close to the European Union. So I think the trade relations between Turkey and the European Union will increase. That's at least my expectation in the midterm. Now, changes that you have asked regarding visa, customs union, and financial assistance. Now, on visa, as you know, we have agreed with Turkey, together we have agreed on a series of benchmarks that need to be fulfilled before visa liberalization can be granted. Turkey has met the large majority of these benchmarks. There are still a few missing. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs is coordinating with other ministries a response to the European Commission to explain and show how these remaining benchmarks will be met. So once this technical process is completed, then obviously both the member states and the European Parliament will have to be consulted. We need them to agree to the granting of the visa liberalization. So the technical process is still going on. And then, as I've mentioned, there will be also a political decision-making process after that. Customs union, you know, our views, and also when we met you with the ambassadors, we discussed this, and our views haven't really changed. We think, as institutions, we think it's a win-win situation. That's why the European Commission proposed a mandate for the negotiations of the upgrading of the customs union. And you know, we have to discuss difficult issues. We have to discuss agriculture, services. We have to discuss public procurement, and we also have to discuss the relationship between Turkey and the European Union vis-a-vis third countries with which we enter into a free trade arrangement. So these are very, very important topics to be discussed, but for political reasons, for the moment, this customs union update mandate has not been granted by the member states. Now, what I think and what many of my colleagues think is we also need to address the issues of the current customs union. We have seen in the last few weeks and months a lot of issues popping up that, in our view, needs to be addressed. We have seen additional duties imposed, additional tariffs imposed. We also have seen additional non-tariff barriers going up, like documentation or similar issues. We are in close contact. There's a close contact between the Department of Trade in the European Commission and the Ministry of Trade in Turkey. So again, I hope these are issues that we can address quickly and overcome quickly. Now, later on in the year, I think all this will be reviewed. We will have a new presidency coming in, Germany, as an important trading partner with Turkey. So we will see how this debate about the customs union can be taken forward in a productive way. But as I say, we also need to address already now a number of the issues that have popped up on both sides, on issues that we are concerned, and of course issues that Turkey is concerned, like the steel safeguards that I'm sure you've seen and read in the press. And as I said, the relationship with third countries with which Turkey does not have an FTA, this is also an issue that needs to be addressed. And on financing, Mr. President, you mentioned already that Turkey will be part of IPA 3, so that is very clear. There is, however, a change in approach. The change is that in IPA 1 and IPA 2, we had financial allocations per country. But we saw that in the beginning of these financial allocations, we didn't have enough mature projects. So therefore, there was always a very slow start, and it took a while for the machinery to kick in, to have projects ready that could be implemented. And then at the end of the process, we always had a backlog, and we need to squeeze the implementation. So the new approach is that we will not have country allocations, but we will have allocations according to sectors, and then countries can present mature projects that are ready to be implemented with a very short delay. And that's the approach, and we've explained this to our counterparts in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the European Affairs Department. They have also started a coordination process with their line ministries to see what are the needs under IPA 3. So once the current discussion inside the European Union on the next 7 years of budget of funding, the so-called the multi-annual financial framework, once this is agreed by the member states, then we will also have the regulations on IPA 3, and then we move forward. Under IPA 2, we have seen a cut, and you're aware of this, and I think again we discussed this last time we met, and that cut had two reasons. One, quite a substantial amount of money had not been spent, and here I must commend again the Minister for Foreign Affairs and the European Affairs Department in the Ministry, because they've done a lot of good work in the last few months to make sure that this backlog, as we call it, this unspent money, is now being used in an efficient manner. And the second reason were political reasons that have led to a reduction of the funding decided by the Council of the European Union and by the European Parliament. But I said in IPA 3, we won't have these budgetary allocations for no country. And what will count then is the maturity, the appropriateness of projects. And this project will be in line also with an agreement between Turkey and the European Union on the areas that we want to look into and we want to fund. Over to you.
Evet, teşekkür ediyorum. Avrupa Birliği'nde salgından en çok etkilenen sektörler nelerdir?
You mean by the pandemic? When you look across the continent, of course, the productive sector has been hit most because you had a slowdown in demand, so less things were bought. Secondly, people had issues going to the companies and to the factories, so there was also a slowdown there. Tourist industry, particularly aviation industry, transportation in general, has been like anywhere in the world, I would think, has been hit very, very hard. And now there are efforts underway to at least to save some part of the summer. Lots of efforts underway in Turkey. The Minister of Tourism explained this to us extremely well yesterday, what the measures are that are being taken in many tourist parts of the country. Airlines have taken now extreme precaution regarding travel, and I'm sure you saw that airlines are now restarting their flights, both internally in Turkey when it started on the 1st of June, but also with destinations abroad. So tourist industry was another one. Construction industry has been hit very hard because it has slowed down or stopped in many parts. Again, very slowly this is resuming, that construction sites are now resuming again. So different industries, but I would say the productive industry was the most effective, and then service industry to a lesser extent. Then, of course, other industries have seen also opportunities and advantages. This might be the IT industry, because a lot of engagements and interactions are now done that way via information technology resources and gear. So not everything is totally negative, but the heavyweights, the heavy sectors of our economies have been hit.
Sorumuz daha olacak. Yine bu COVID-19 salgınında tedarik açısından Doğu Asya'ya aşırı bağımlılığın çok ciddi bir risk teşkil ettiği görüldü. Avrupa Birliği, Türkiye için ihracat ve ithalatta önemli bir pazar. Salgınla mücadele uygulamalarınız ülkemiz ile ticaretinizi nasıl etkilemiştir? Ticari ilişkilerimizde yeni normal nasıl olacaktır?
I think we talked a little bit already early on about the supply chain and the danger of the supply chain being interrupted, particularly when the supply chain, the physical supply chain, the transportation chain is very long. And when you rely on industry in third countries, and you don't know, I mean, those third countries may go through a different cycle of a crisis as we have just seen, or may start early, then interrupt the supply chain, or later. It really depends on the epidemiological situation in every country. But what is clear, that often it leads to interruption. And from a strategic point of view, from making sure that the flow of goods continues, this is something that needs to be addressed. So one of the closer to home to this whole idea of the green lanes was exactly that, because if we hadn't introduced the green lanes and with the borders being closed, very quickly supermarkets across the continent, half of them would have been half empty, because many supermarkets get, of course, goods and products from other countries. So this is in the area of the European Union, but when you look at it worldwide, the same situation applies. So the closer to home, so to speak, this supply comes from, and products are being delivered from, the better it is. And as I mentioned, I think given Turkey's position, Turkey's interaction with the European Union, Turkey's resources, both in terms of labor force but also entrepreneurship, is a very solid and strong partner. And I'm sure many European and other companies will realize this and will then take decisions. As institutions, of course, we're not telling them what to decide and what to do. We're trying to help together with our Turkish counterparts to create the necessary framework and environment, regulatory environment for those companies to relocate to Turkey. But I would think for the reasons I've mentioned before, this would be certainly an important consideration. Now, on the new normal, I really don't know. I mean, when you look back to similar crisis situations as we had, for example, in the aviation industry in 2000 after 9/11, we still have today measures in place that were taken more than 20 years ago. When you think about security measures at airports, which were not there before the year 2000, or not to that extent, and I'm sure passengers before that time would have had problems accepting all this, what we have to accept today as a new normal. And I think with this crisis, it will be similar. We will see what still needs to be done, what needs to be followed in our sort of daily life. In our trade relations, I'm not sure what the impact would be. I can see a more, as we mentioned before, a more move towards digitalization. To have more long distance sort of relations, the sense of video conferences, of webinars, of teleconferences and telephone calls rather than traveling and meeting people face to face. I think that might be a result of the crisis, and maybe a result on the way we will be changing our own sort of personal behavior. I think this is fine, and we have seen this already in the past, that many companies, in order to economize, are choosing that way of interaction. I think it is fine if you know people, but at one stage, of course, the personal element plays a role, and you need to engage face to face with your partners. So that, I would think, is one of the impacts on the trade relationship. And the other one, coming back to the earlier point, to see if certain goods and products that at the moment are not produced, neither in the European Union nor in Turkey, but are needed, should not be relocated to a place closer to the EU and to Turkey, so within the customs union. So I would think these are a couple of suggestions I can come up with now in terms of what the evolvement of trade relations will be in the future.
Teşekkür ediyorum. Son bir sorum var. Özellikle Büyükelçime, Avrupa'da e-ticaretin geleceği için şu anki şirketlere alternatif Avrupalı bir şirket olacak mı? Bu konuda desteklediğiniz bir e-ticaret oluşumu var mı? Son sorum.
Yes, I think first of all we need to look into the regulatory framework and the legislation, both in Europe itself, but also at the international level. And there are debates within WTO and other organizations that are exactly doing that. Secondly, the question that you have just asked is a very important addition to the point that I made early on about digitalization of the economy. So e-commerce obviously will be very important, both in terms of interaction between companies, but also interaction between companies and customers. And what we have seen, I think in the last 3 months, we have seen a wave of these e-commerce. Many people are now shopping online. Many people are using these facilities to get products. We will have to see what impact this will have on the physical retail industry, and all this needs to be obviously regulated. In particular, when you have cross-border goods, when you have cross-border trade, issues of warranty, issues of many other sort of legal aspects of this trade, and there is already a substantial amount of legislation and regulations that has been adopted at the European level. I don't know if there will be an EU-wide company. I know that in some countries of the member states, there are companies that are now more and more using e-commerce. There are companies that are actually combining e-commerce itself with transportation. So, for example, in my own country, the post office, the post authorities is now also moving into that direction. So you will see a lot of innovation, I'm sure, and people will adjust to the situation. And people are very, as I said, very, very resourceful, and will find a way of addressing this issue, both to the benefit of trade, but also the benefit of, after all, of customers, because they will demand certain services.
Evet, Sayın Başkanıma, Büyükelçime çok teşekkür ediyorum. Değerli Ticaret Odamızın üyeleri, yine geçen ay Ticaret Bakanımız Sayın Ruslar Pekcan, Sayın Berger ve delegasyon üyesi ülkelerin büyükelçilerinin yanı sıra Türkiye, Avrupa İş Konseyleri başkanlarıyla görüştü. Ticarette geldiğimiz nokta ve bundan sonrasının değerlendirdiği bu temasları biz de yakinen takip ediyoruz. Türkiye hali hazırda Gümrük Birliği'nin bir parçası olup 20 ülkeyle imzaladığı serbest ticaret anlaşmasına harfiyen uymaktadır. Bu son süreçte yaşananlar ve günümüz koşullarının yeniden şekillenmesiyle Gümrük Birliği'nin güncellenmesi ve kapsamının genişletilmesinin önemli olduğunu düşünmekteyiz. Türkiye buradan kaynaklanan sorunlar nedeniyle Avrupa Birliği pazarında yeteri kadar pay alamamaktadır. Uluslararası rekabet gücümüz yüksek olmasına rağmen 43 üründe Avrupa Birliği ülkelerine ihracat gerçekleştiremiyoruz. 304 üründe ise ülkemizin Avrupa Birliği pazarındaki payı %1'in altında kalıyor. Bu ürünlerden bazılarında, Sayın Büyükelçim de ifade etti, Avrupa Birliği ülkelerine istediğimiz ölçüde ihracat gerçekleştirmememizin nedeni uygulanan yüksek tarifeler ile çıkarılan engellerdir. Mesela Avrupa Birliği'nin çelik ürünlerindeki korunma önlemlerini en çok Türkiye'den ihracatını etkileyecek şekilde almış olması sıkıntıyı büyütmüştür. Bazı Avrupa Birliği ülkelerince de ülkemizde kayıtlı ticari araçlara uygulanan karayolu kotaları ile karayolu taşımacılığındaki engeller kaldırılmalı. İş adamlarımıza, özellikle uluslararası tır şoförlerimize uygulanan vizelerin oluşturduğu teknik engellerin bir an önce kaldırılması noktasında Büyükelçimizin gayreti ve çabasının olduğunu biliyor ve inanıyoruz. Bu konuda da desteklerinin artırarak sonuca gitme noktasında beklentimizin olduğunu ifade ediyorum. Yine ülkemiz ağırlıklı olarak Avrupa'dan ham madde ve yatırım malı ithalatı yapmaktayız. Avrupa Birliği için hem alımda hem de satımda daha etkin bir partner olabiliriz. Sayın Başkanım, çok değerli delegasyon üyeleri, zaman zaman yaşanan gelgitlere rağmen Türkiye, Avrupa Birliği ülkeleri için halen en güvenilir bir liman olduğuna zaten Büyükelçim de söyledi. Biz de aynı görüşteyiz. Devam etmekte. Türkiye ile coğrafi yakınlığını ticaret ve ikili ilişkilerde de çok daha sağlam bir işbirliği haline getirilmeli. Böylelikle halklarımız daha da yakınlaşmalı. Böyle bir durum her iki taraf için de çok daha güzel günlere açılacak bir kapı olacaktır. Büyük bir kazanç sağlayacaktır. Salgın ve sonrasında yaşananlar bir kez daha gösterdi ki hepimiz aynı gemideyiz. Karşımıza çıkan engelleri ancak dayanışma ve birlikte çalışarak daha çabuk ve daha az zararla atlatabiliriz. Sayın Başkanım, Avrupa Birliği'ne tam üyeliğe ulaşmakta kararlılığımız devam etmektedir. Türkiye olarak müzakere sürecinde karşılaştığımız tüm zorluklara rağmen bunu ana hedeflerimizden biri olarak görüyoruz. Avrupa Birliği çevrelerinde zaman zaman Türkiye ile üyelik müzakerelerinin sonlandırılması dillendiriliyor. Ne yazık ki Avrupa Birliği Türkiye ilişkilerinin üyelik süreci bağlamında çıkartılması isteniyor. Ortak ekonomik, güvenlik ve stratejik çıkarlar etrafında yeniden tanımlanması gerektiği görüşüne zemin kazandırılmaya çalışılıyor. Bu türdeki görüşler genellikle Avrupa Parlamentosu üyeleri tarafından dile getiriliyor. Avrupa Parlamentosu, Avrupa Birliği Konseyi ile birlikte Avrupa Birliği ülkelerinin yasama yetkisini paylaşıyor. Ancak son karar Avrupa Birliği Konseyi'ne ait. O nedenle özellikle şahsınızın ve çok değerli konseyinizin bu konuda yapıcı ve güçlü desteğinin olacağına inancım tamdır. Sayın Büyükelçimden bu konuyla ilgili de güçlü desteklerini bekliyoruz. Önümüzdeki günlerde bu yönde atacağınız adımlarla sizlere merhaba dediğimiz andan bu yana olan samimi yaklaşımınızın için şahsım, üyem ve şehrim adına çok teşekkür ediyorum. Daha önceki ziyaretinizde kurulan ikili ilişkilerin derinleştirilmesinin meyvelerinin her iki taraf açısından da büyük fayda sağlayacağını Sayın Büyükelçim söylemişti. Bu sözünüzün önümüzdeki süreçte yapacaklarınızla karşılık bulacağına inanıyoruz. Onun için bu toplantının Avrupa Birliği ve ülkemiz açısından verimli olmasını temenni ediyor. Saygılarımı sunuyorum. Sözü Sayın Büyükelçim'de.
Sorry, Mr. President, thank you very much for your remarks that you've just made. They're very important for the broader aspects of the relationship. I fully agree with you. A better, deeper relationship, which very often comes from your community, from the business community, because these are, in my view, your community is the strongest bridge between the European Union and Turkey. Yes, there are many others too, civil society and government officials and so on, but you have a daily engagement and interaction with European companies. I think this is very, very important. Just a couple of remarks on what you said. The irritants that you referred to, yes, and I said, they are really on both sides and we need to address them. For steel, we have a process going on in WTO, so we hope that the same is for pharmaceutical products. So we hope that with the help of the WTO, we will find a way. But the message from us, and if you were in the meeting with the minister a couple of weeks ago, you will have heard that it is not a matter of discriminatory approach or undercutting the customs union. This was a matter of reacting to the developing situation, and it has been applied across board with all countries that are affected by this. The transport quota that you referred to, again, this comes up very often. I only have maybe it's not a satisfactory answer, but my answer here is that transport and road quota is I think you said yourself, is a responsibility of the individual member states. However, it was intended in the negotiations on the customs union, the updating of the customs union to address this service issue, this road transportation issue as well. On visas, we already have talked, but let me close my remarks by what you said about Turkey being determined to join the European Union. We have all seen the very positive and strong messages from the President and from the Foreign Minister and others on Europe Day on the 9th of May, underlining exactly what you have just said, that the wish of the country is to join the European Union. And you referred also to to sometimes negative statements, but let me simply repeat what the rapporteur of the European Parliament who came to visit Turkey earlier this year, who said on many occasions, and I heard him again today say the same thing, the framework of our relationship with Turkey is the accession process. Yes, it is halted at the moment. We are not moving forward with the chapters, but the framework is and remains the accession process. You said the final decision rests with the Council, which is true in structural terms, but I really need to tell you the final decision remains in many countries with the population, because in many countries, after the procedures are completed, after the Council and the Parliament have voted, in many countries we need to go to referenda. So I'm saying this because I do not want to underestimate, and we all should understand this, I do not want to underestimate the importance of public opinion. So we need to also regain the confidence of the public opinion that this relationship between Turkey and the European Union is also for the benefit of the population in Europe. And I'm saying this because the example of 1995, for example, when 4 countries were about to join the European Union, and then in one of those 4 countries, after everything was done, after everything was completed, after the treaty had been prepared, the members, the population in that country said no to the accession. So population and public opinion, in my view, is very important for this process. So thank you for this opportunity. I think it was a good exchange. It was important because it was always important to hear from people who are directly involved with this relationship, with the practical side of it, what the problems are that you're facing. And I can tell you, as I've said to you before, and my colleagues, the other ambassadors said to you in the meeting, all of us are happy to and very eager to help you in case you face obstacles and problems in your daily relationship with your European interlocutors.
Ben de teşekkür ediyorum. Sayın Büyükelçime bu plaketi takdim ediyorum. Ama bu plaketi şu an ekrandan takdim edip ama aslını kendisine göndereceğim. Özellikle Avrupa Birliği ile Denizli'nin ikili ticari ilişkilerine katkılarından dolayı bu plaketimizi ve şiltimizi Sayın Büyükelçimize göndereceğim. Kabul buyururlarsa memnun oluruz.
I'm very honored. This is a great pleasure to have this and a great memory of our relationship and the meeting today.
Tekrar görüşmek üzere. İyi günler, iyi çalışmalar diliyorum. Saygılarımızla.
Thank you very much. See you soon, hopefully.
Görüşmek üzere. Hoşça kalın. Sağ olun.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And thanks for the interpretation.